Good late afternoon slash early evening, everybody. We are just about to get underway with the preseason here. Game starts any minute now, and me and the Hawks Nest will be streaming in a couple of hours. So now's the time of day when I typically do a little roundup of what we learned from training camp today. Training camp wrapped up a little bit ago. And yeah, let's dive in here. Obviously, I already covered the big story earlier today with the Charbonnet news, which was great. Great news there. So, Charbonnet has gotten back on the practice field, and it seems like everything's good. So, hopefully that holds. Hopefully, he's ready to go week one and ready to contribute. So let's run through some other stuff. A lot of the updates we got today, because Carroll did speak to the media after practice, of course, and a lot of the updates we got were injury related, so we learned some more stuff as well. First, though, I want to talk about something that doesn't directly pertain to a training camp. For anyone out there who was maybe still thinking about that Geno Smith DUI in the back of your head, it looks like the book has been closed. No charges will be filed against Geno Smith, according to a King County spokesman reported by Mr. Condotta. So, if there was any part of you that was maybe concerned that there was going to be some kind of charge filed against Geno that could take games away from him or maybe even take away a season from him, doesn't look like it's going to happen. Now, we know that Roger Goodell can still do whatever he wants to do even without charges filed, but at this point, I think it's pretty unlikely. So, yeah, we can put this one in our rearview mirror. Apparently, they could not confirm that he was even driving under the influence. They couldn't confirm that he was impaired. I guess his blood alcohol level was like half the legal limit. So put it all together, and they just decided there wasn't really enough there to go on. So Geno Smith looks like he's in the clear. You're never really in the clear when it comes to Roger Goodell, I guess, but this is as good a news as we could have hoped for. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what happened today at training camp. Let's start with the big headlines in terms of guys who really stood out. DK Metcalf caught a couple touchdowns today. There was one on a free play. There was another on a slot fade against Mike Jackson. Corbin Smith kind of lays it out here. Metcalf made several big plays today, so that was great. He looks ready to go. I've heard pretty much nothing but good things about Metcalf so far in camp. I think he's dropped a couple of passes, but Metcalf is always going to be a guy who drops a pass or two. It's just something that I'm more than happy to live with. Witherspoon had another good practice as well. I know that's obviously going to be on the forefront of many people's minds as we get closer to this season. How's Witherspoon doing? So he continues to stack good practices, so that's great. And those are probably the two main highlights. I believe that Eskridge had the opportunity to make a big play in this training camp session, but he dropped it, not his first drop. And unlike Metcalf, who can get away with dropping the occasional pass because he makes so many plays, Eskridge is a guy who can't. So, going to be very interesting to see where this Dwayne Eskridge stuff goes over the next couple weeks here, because this is a big moment for him, and he may or his roster spot may be at risk here. So, moving beyond some of the stuff that happened on the field, those were the main things that stood out to me. Pete Carroll came out to speak a little bit more about injuries, because we do have some updates on some injured players, because Daryl Taylor had his arm in a sling today, did not practice. He was out there, but he didn't practice. And per Pete Carroll, he has a sprained shoulder. So another shoulder injury, just like Charbonnet. So I don't know if there's anything to read into there, but he's not going to need surgery, Daryl Taylor. So that's obviously good news. But he did not offer up any kind of a concrete timetable on Daryl Taylor's return. Obviously, tomorrow's the mock game. You certainly wouldn't expect him to participate in that. But we've still got more than a month before the regular season starts, so a sprained shoulder, you should be okay. Daryl Taylor's been in the league a few years now. It's not like he needs these training camp reps really badly. So, yeah, not too worried here, but it is a new injury to add to the pile here. And he's probably going to be held out of practice for at least a little bit here. Obviously, it's kind of important that we get good reps out of Daryl Taylor this year. He is going to be the first edge player off the bench in my estimation, and he is going to be one of our best pass rushers. Moving along on the injury front, we also got this. Aaron Levine tweeted this out. Walker's groin Carroll's comments were they have to make sure it goes away before he gets back. Not a serious injury. Could be a nagging type of injury. Don't want to make it worse. And this is kind of the expectation that I had. The injury was not going to be all that bad, but it was probably going to linger. So Walker will probably be at less than 100% when the season starts. Now, everybody's at less than 100% once the season gets going, really, but Walker, I think he played a good chunk of the season last year at less than 100%, so it's not like it's going to inhibit him and make him ineffective. He had some of his best games at the end of the year last year when I think he was playing with a bad foot and I think it was a hernia. So definitely not counting him out, but this is kind of what I expected. It's not that big of a deal. So I fully expect to have both of our running backs ready to go by week 1. But just be aware that it is something that's probably going to linger on into the season, and hopefully it just doesn't get worse. And Carroll also ventured this about the guys who are injured. The PUP guys are making progress. They're all healed. It's about getting them in football shape. So when he's talking about the PUP guys, he's talking about Jordan Brooks, talking about Jamal Adams, Brian Monet. I think you have Austin Faolu as well. And, Noah Fant's off the list, so actually he's just ready to go at this point. But I think there were a couple other guys who were also Oh, yeah, Tariq Woolen. And I think that was actually it. So he's basically saying they are healthy. They just need to get into shape. So that's great news. So with the exception of Monet and Brooks, I think all those guys will be ready to go week 1, but only time will tell. So great update from Carroll. Hopefully this is the case. Hopefully it's true, and hopefully it holds true moving into the regular season here. As for some updates about specific players and their performance out on the practice field so far, Carroll had this to offer. Now, understand, Carroll is a more positive coach. This is not Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells will talk about how his players aren't doing very good. Parcells will trash players. Parcells will say negative things about players. There are other coaches out there that will certainly do that. Carroll's not really one of them, but it's always kind of interesting to see who he's specifically singling out. I got to believe that does mean something. So the guys he singled out initially defensively were Draymond Jones and Mario Edwards Jr. And those two guys may end up being your starting defensive ends in this defense. Now, Draymond, obviously, we expect him to be great. That's not a surprise at all. He was great in Denver. We gave him a lot of money. He's over here now. We expect him to be great. Mario Edwards Jr. was somebody who we signed kind of at the last second after the off-season stuff was basically over. So if he comes in here and actually does some really good stuff, then that's kind of finding a $20 bill that on the ground that you just didn't expect to find. So that would be great. But word is that he's looked really good in camp so far. So that's backed up by other people. So good news there. If Mario Edwards can provide meaningful snaps, then maybe we don't need to go get Shelby Harris. Maybe we don't need to get Matt Ioannidis or Akeem Hicks or whoever. If Mario Edwards is ready to go and play really good, then we got something. So those are two guys that Carroll singled out, which is exciting. And a couple other guys on the defensive side of the ball that he singled out in his conference just now. Boye Mafe and Cameron Young. And Cameron Young, obviously, that's valuable. But Boye Mafe in particular, I am counting on a lot from that guy. And hearing this is exciting. Boye Mafe, I think, is going to start a majority of the time this year. He's a better run defender than Taylor by a long shot. He has the year of experience on Hall. Mafe, I think, is definitely going to start this year, and he's going to play a majority of snaps. Him and Nwosu are our two best run defenders at the edge, and you want them out there in neutral situations. Taylor, you want out there in the pass-heavy situations, third down, second and long, maybe first and long, etc. And that's going to come up plenty. But Mafe, it was important, I think, that he develop this offseason, and it sounds like he has. And it's not just Carroll saying this. It's other people watching. It's other people viewing Mafe's work at the VMAC and saying, this guy looks better. This guy's making a lot of good plays. So Mafe being the most improved player in camp, according to Carroll, and having that backed up by other people is a big deal. because I believe that this defense would have real problems if Mafe didn't take that step forward this year. Because Taylor, while he is a valuable player, isn't really somebody you want starting and having to be out there. And Nwosu can't do it all by himself, and he probably got too many snaps last year as is, so you don't want to overload him this year. So that is great news. I'm really excited to hear that. Boye Mafe is a guy who I kind of fell in love with months before we even drafted him. I really liked this guy's story. I liked his development. I really liked how he was coming along. And then we drafted him, and I was really happy about that. And to see it come along like this, kind of just how you would hope that it happens, because we all knew that as a rookie, Mafe wasn't going to do a ton because he was relatively new to the game. He had kind of only played football for a few years before he got drafted, in a way. And he's right on time. And Cameron Young, according to Carroll from this Curtis Crabtree tweet, has looked like a totally different player since they put on pads in practice. I think he means that in the positive sense. I actually was impressed by the rep that Cameron Young had on Oluwatimi. He looked like he just ripped right through him. So that rep caught my attention, and it looks like his play in general has caught Carroll's attention. And Cameron Young, I mean, that was probably the one time in the most recent draft where the Seahawks drafted for need rather than BPA, and he has an important role to play in this defense, regardless of what Jaron Reed does. We need nose tackles. And I don't believe Reed's going to be able to play every snap, and I don't believe Monet's going to be back anytime soon, honestly. Like, I know they're saying he has a chance to be ready for week one. I'm pessimistic about that. I think mid-season at best. And hearing that Cameron Young is at least ready to play somewhere in some capacity is a big deal. All right, so that's your roundup of training camp so far today. See you guys in a couple hours on the Hawks Nest show. Peace out. Go Hawks. Have fun with the preseason game.